The stars looked peaceful from the observation deck of Kepler Station. Commander Hayek pressed his face against the cold glass and watched the distant suns twinkle in the darkness. He had been stationed here for 3 years now, serving as Earth's only representative to the Galactic Harmony Coalition. Most days were quiet. Too quiet. The alarm that suddenly screamed through the station was not quiet at all. Hyuk ran down the metal corridors toward the communication center. His boots made loud sounds on the floor as he hurried past aliens of different shapes and sizes. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others looked like giant insects walking on their back legs. All of them looked scared. Dr. Nari was already in the communication center when Hayek arrived. She was the only other human on the station, brought here to study alien languages and help with translation. Her hands moved quickly over the control panel as data flowed across multiple screens. "What's happening?" Hayek asked, breathing hard from running. "Emergency session," Nari replied without looking up. "All coalition members are being called to the main assembly hall. Something big." Ambassador Veltar stood at the center of the assembly hall when they arrived. The Thessarian diplomat was tall and thin, with blue skin that changed color when he was upset. Right now, his skin was very dark blue. Around him sat representatives from 12 different alien species. They all looked worried. "Friends," Veltar began, his voice shaking, "I must share terrible news. The Devourers have taken the Kalani system." A sound like gasping came from around the room. Hayek had heard about the Devourers before, but they were always described as a distant threat. Something that happened to other people in other parts of the galaxy. "How many?" asked the Zephyrian representative, a being that looked like a floating jellyfish. "All of them," Veltar answered. 40 billion Kalani, all converted or consumed within 72 hours. The room went silent. Hayek felt his stomach drop. 40 billion people. Gone. "That makes 6 systems in 2 months, continued Veltar. "Our defense fleets cannot stop them. Our negotiation attempts have failed. The Devourers do not talk. They only consume." Dr. Nari leaned close to Hyuk and whispered, "From what I understand, the Devourers are like a giant hive of insects, but intelligent. They eat everything on a planet and turn the people into more Devourers." "The Coalition Council has decided," Veltar announced, "to send a distress call to every known civilization in the galaxy, even those we have had no contact with." An argument broke out immediately. The representatives began talking loudly in their different languages. Some were angry, others were scared. The floating jellyfish-like Zephyrian spoke in a high, singing voice that hurt Hayek's ears. "You cannot be serious," said the Mandorian representative, a creature covered in thick gray fur. "There are reasons why some worlds are classified as restricted contact zones." "The Deathworlds," added another voice. "Veltar, you cannot mean to contact the Deathworlds." Hayek raised his hand. "Excuse me, but what exactly is a Deathworld?" The room went quiet again. All the aliens looked at him with expressions he couldn't read. Finally, Dr. Nari cleared her throat. "Hyuk," she said slowly. "Earth is classified as a Class 12 Death World." "What does that mean?" Veltar's skin grew even darker. "It means your planet is so dangerous that most species cannot survive there. The gravity is too strong, the weather is too violent, the life forms are too aggressive. Most civilized beings consider death worlds to be impossible to live on." Hayek blinked. "But we live there just fine." "Yes," Veltar said quietly. "That is what makes you terrifying." The argument continued for another hour. In the end, Veltar won. The distress call would be sent to everyone, including the Death Worlds. Most of the representatives left the assembly hall shaking their heads or making sounds of disapproval in their alien languages. Later that evening, Hyuk sat in his small quarters and sent a message to Earth through the quantum communication array. He explained the situation and attached all the data about the Devourers that the Coalition had shared with him. The response came back faster than he expected. "Message received," the text read. "Threat assessment complete. 3 expeditionary. Fleets will depart Sol system within 48 hours. Estimated arrival time, 14 days. Prepare Coalition for human military protocols." Hyuk stared at the message. 3 fleets? That seemed like a lot for a first contact situation. He walked down the corridor to find Dr. Nari in her laboratory. Did you see the response from Earth? He asked. Nari looked up from her work. She was studying samples of devourer tissue that had been recovered from an attack site. Yes, 3 fleets. That's the standard response for a Class 5 extinction threat. Class 5. Extinction threat? That's how Earth Command classifies the devourer problem, Nari explained. Based on their expansion rate and consumption patterns, they could consume the entire galaxy within 200 years if left unchecked. Hayuk sat down heavily in a chair. The Coalition has been fighting them for 2 months and losing badly. What makes Earth think we can help? Nari smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. Hyuk, do you know what humans did to the last hive mind species that tried to invade Earth? No. We made them extinct. It took 6 months. The Coalition doesn't understand what they've asked for. The next morning, Hyuk was called to another emergency meeting. This time, only the senior Coalition leaders were present. Veltar looked like he hadn't slept. Commander Hyuk, Veltar began. We have been researching your species since yesterday. What we have learned is... Concerning how? The Mandorian representative placed a data tablet on the table. Your species has been at war with itself for its entire recorded history. You have developed weapons capable of destroying your own planet multiple times over. You treat violence as a first option rather than a last resort. Your military doctrine, added the Zephyrian, includes something called total war and acceptable losses. These concepts are unknown to civilized species. Hyuk felt uncomfortable. We're not monsters. We fight when we have to protect what matters to us. That, said Veltar quietly, is exactly what concerns us. We have learned that humans are capable of surviving in environments that would kill most Coalition species within minutes. Your planet has trained you to be efficient at destruction. Are you saying you want to cancel the request for help? The aliens looked at each other. After a long moment, Veltar spoke. It is too late. Your fleets are already coming. We must hope that your species can be controlled, and that they will be satisfied with simply eliminating the devourers rather than everyone else as well. Dr. Nari joined them an hour later. She listened as the Coalition leaders explained their fears about human military involvement. You're worried about the wrong thing, she told them. You should be worried about what happens to the devourers when humans decide they're a problem that needs to be solved permanently. What do you mean? Asked Veltar. Humans don't do half measures, Nari explained. When we decide something is a threat, we don't just fight it. We eliminate it completely. We make sure it can never threaten anyone ever again. The room went silent once more. Outside the station's windows, the stars continued to twinkle peacefully in the darkness. But somewhere out there, 3 human fleets were coming. And somewhere else, the devourers were consuming another world. Hyuk wondered which force the galaxy should be more afraid of. The human fleet arrived exactly when they said they would. Commander Hyuk watched from the station's main observation deck as 3 massive shapes appeared in space near Thessarian Prime. The ships were dark gray and covered with what looked like weapons. Lots and lots of weapons. Those are not exploration vessels, whispered Ambassador Veltar, standing beside Hyuk. The Thessarian's skin had turned almost black with fear. Dr. Nari checked her datapad. The lead ship is the Soul's Vengeance, Admiral Tay commanding. It's a Hammer-class dreadnought. What does dreadnought mean? Asked Veltar. It means it's designed to fight entire fleets by itself, Nari replied. And win. The communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke, in clear, strong English. Kepler Station. This is Admiral Tay of the Terran Expeditionary Force, requesting immediate docking permission and tactical briefing on the Devourer threat. Hayuk pressed the communication button. Admiral Tay, this is Commander Hayuk. You are cleared for docking. Welcome to Coalition Space. Thank you, Commander. We'll be sending a team aboard in 20 minutes. Be prepared to provide all available data on enemy capabilities, positions, and recent attack patterns. The communication ended. Veltar looked at Hyuk with wide eyes. 20 minutes? Don't they want to rest? To tour the station? To discuss diplomatic protocols? Humans don't waste time when there's a job to do, Nari explained. They want to understand the enemy first. Everything else comes later. Admiral Tay was shorter than Hayuk had expected, but she moved like a predator. Her uniform was simple and practical, with no decorations except for rank insignia. Behind her came a team of humans wearing different uniforms. One was Captain Miso, who carried weapons that made the Coalition security guards nervous. Another was Engineer Kato, who immediately began examining the station systems. The last was Dr. Rin, a biologist who looked at the alien representatives like they were interesting specimens. "Commander Hayek," Admiral Tay said, shaking his hand firmly. "Thank you for the invitation. We're here to solve your devourer problem. We appreciate Earth's willingness to help," Veltar said carefully. "Perhaps we should begin with diplomatic discussions about how our species can work together." Admiral Tay looked at him for a moment. "Ambassador, we can have diplomatic discussions after we eliminate the threat. Right now, I need to know everything about these devourers. Captain Miso will handle tactical analysis. Dr. Rin will examine biological samples. Engineer Kato will review your defense systems." "But surely there." "Our protocols," Veltar began. "The protocol is simple," interrupted Captain Miso. "We identify the enemy. We locate the enemy. We destroy the enemy. Everything else is secondary." Dr. Rin approached the Thessarian with a small device in her hand. "May I scan you? I need to understand Coalition biology to determine which of our weapons will be safe to use around you." Veltar stepped backward. "Safe to use? Some of our biological weapons affect certain types of nervous systems," Dr. Rin explained casually. "I want to make sure we don't accidentally kill you while we're killing the devourers." The room went very quiet. Dr. Nari coughed. "Dr. Rin, perhaps you could explain that differently." "Oh," Dr. Rin said, looking confused. "Are we not supposed to mention the biological weapons yet?" Engineer Kato looked up from the control panel he was examining. "Your defensive systems are interesting," he told Veltar. "Very focused on protection and evasion. No offensive capabilities at all." "We are a peaceful coalition," Veltar replied. "We do not believe in weapons of mass destruction." "That explains why you're losing," Captain Miso said simply. "You can't fight a predator species with peaceful intentions." Admiral Tay spread a holographic map on the conference table. Red dots marked the systems that had been consumed by the devourers. "Show me their attack patterns!" For the next 2 hours, the Coalition representatives explained everything they knew about the devourers. The aliens consumed organic matter to grow their numbers. They converted captured populations into mindless drones. They moved from system to system like a plague, leaving nothing behind. Dr. Rin took notes on a small computer. "Interesting. They show classic hive mind behavior patterns, similar to the killers we dealt with in the Vega sector." "The killers?" asked Dr. Nari. "Insect-like species that tried to invade the solar system about 50 years ago," Dr. Rin explained. "They wanted to use Earth as a breeding ground. We made them extinct." "You made an entire species extinct?" Veltar's voice was very small. "Well, yes," Dr. Rin said, as if this was obvious. "They were a threat to human survival. What else would we do?" Captain Miso pointed at the holographic map. "Based on these attack patterns, I estimate we have 6 weeks before they reach the core Coalition worlds. That's not much time." "6 weeks?" Veltar gasped. "Our calculations suggested we had at least 6 months. Your calculations assumed they would maintain their current expansion rate," Admiral Tay said. "But successful predators accelerate their growth when they find easy prey. The Coalition worlds are very easy prey." Engineer Kato finished his examination of the station's systems. "Admiral, their defensive shields wouldn't stop a single torpedo from our smallest ship. Their weapons are designed for disabling, not destroying. They don't even have nuclear capabilities." "Nuclear capabilities?" whispered the Mandorian representative. "Atomic weapons," Dr. Nari translated. "Earth has had them for over 100 years. You split atoms as weapons?" The Mandorian's fur stood up straight. "Among other things," Captain Miso said, "we also have plasma cannons, gravity bombs, and antimatter missiles." The Coalition representatives looked at each other with expressions of pure terror. Dr. Rin noticed their fear and tried to be helpful. "Don't worry," she said cheerfully. "We only use the really dangerous weapons on enemies. You're allies now." "What do you consider really dangerous?" asked Veltar weakly. "Planet crackers, star killers, that sort of thing," Dr. Rin replied. "But those are only for extreme situations. Star killers? Veltar repeated. Weapons that make stars explode, Engineer Cato explained helpfully. Very useful for sterilizing entire systems if they're completely overrun. Admiral Tay studied the map more carefully. We'll need to examine some devourer specimens before we begin operations. Do you have any captive samples? We have some tissue samples from attack sites, Dr. Nari offered. Living specimens would be better, Dr. Rin said. I need to understand their biology before I design the bioweapons. Bioweapons? Veltar's skin had turned so dark it was almost purple. Diseases that target specific species? Dr. Rin explained. Much more efficient than conventional weapons for dealing with large populations. The alarm system suddenly screamed through the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors. A voice announced over the communication system. All personnel to emergency stations. Devourer ships detected approaching the system. Captain Miso was moving before the announcement finished. How many ships? Scanner shows 12 vessels, reported the station's duty officer. Small scout force. Perfect, said Admiral Tay. Captain Miso, prepare for live capture operations. Dr. Rin, you'll get your specimens after all. The coalition representatives watched in amazement as the humans moved with practiced efficiency. Captain Miso spoke quickly into her communication device, coordinating with the ships in space. Engineer Cato began modifying the station's systems. Dr. Rin prepared containers for biological samples. Shouldn't we evacuate? Asked Veltar. Call for help? Prepare defenses? No need, Admiral Tay said calmly. This won't take long. On the main screen, they watched as the human ships moved to intercept the Devourer scouts. The enemy vessels were organic-looking, like giant insects made of dark metal and flesh. They moved in perfect formation, as if controlled by a single mind. The first Devourer ship died in a flash of blue light. The second exploded in a cloud of debris. The third tried to flee but was caught by something that looked like a net made of energy. Tractor beam, Engineer Cato explained to the shocked aliens. We'll bring that one in for study. In less than 4 minutes, all 12 Devourer ships were either destroyed or captured. The human fleet hadn't suffered any damage at all. Impossible, whispered the Zephyrian representative. Devourer ships are supposed to be incredibly powerful. Compared to what? Asked Captain Miso. They use basic plasma weapons and natural armor. Our ships are designed to fight opponents with similar technology to our own. Admiral Tay turned to Veltar. Ambassador, we'll begin our analysis of the captured specimens immediately. I estimate we'll have a complete solution to your Devourer problem within 2 weeks. 2 weeks? Veltar could barely speak. Maybe less, Dr. Rin added happily. Depending on how quickly I can develop the bioweapons. As the human team prepared to leave for their ships, Dr. Nari approached Hyuk quietly. You should probably warn the coalition, she said. Warn them about what? What they're about to see, Nari replied. The humans haven't even started trying yet. This was just them being polite. The research facility on Thessarian Prime's moon was built in 3 days. Commander Hyuk watched human construction robots work without stopping, building laboratories and testing areas at a speed that amazed the coalition engineers. The robots moved like they had built 1,000 facilities just like this one. How did they do this so quickly? Asked Veltar, his blue skin showing patterns of confusion. Engineer Cato looked up from a control panel. Standard military construction protocols. When humans need something built quickly, we build it very quickly. Dr. Rin was already working in the main laboratory when Hyuk arrived for the daily briefing. She had specimens from the captured Devourer, ships spread across multiple tables. Some were still moving. The sight made several coalition observers feel sick. Fascinating creatures, Dr. Rin said cheerfully, poking one of the specimens with a metal tool. Much more complex than they appeared from the reports. Tactical analyst Do Hyun stood beside a large screen showing the internal structure of a Devourer. He was a quiet man who spoke only when he had something important to say. The individual units are not as unified as the coalition believed, he announced. What do you mean? Asked Dr. Nari. Look at these neural pathways, Do Hyun pointed to glowing lines on the screen. Each Devourer unit has its own basic thought processes. They're connected to the hive mind, but they maintain individual survival instincts. Dr. Rin nodded enthusiastically. More importantly, I've found evidence of at least 3 separate hive clusters among these specimens. They have different genetic markers. Different clusters? Veltar looked confused. Think of them as different families, Dr. Rin explained. They work together now because they're all expanding into new territory. But in their natural environment, these clusters would compete with each other for resources. Captain Miso entered the laboratory carrying a data pad. She moved with the easy confidence of someone who had seen many battlefields. The interrogation of the captured control unit confirms Dr. Rin's findings. There are at least 6 major devourer clusters currently operating in this galaxy. Interrogation? Asked the Thessarian scientist Kelmoth. But they don't communicate. Everything communicates, Captain Miso replied. You just need the right methods to make them talk. Dr. Nari decided not to ask what those methods were. Doyun manipulated the display to show a map of devourer-controlled territory. Different colored zones mark the areas controlled by different clusters. Under normal circumstances, these clusters would be fighting each other. The only reason they're working together is because they found an entire galaxy full of easy targets. So if we removed the easy targets, Dr. Rin began, they would return to their natural behavior, Doyun finished. Competition and territorial conflict. Admiral Tay joined them via holographic communication from her ship. Her image flickered slightly as she spoke. Analyst Dohyun, can we exploit this weakness? Yes, Admiral. I've developed 3 possible strategies. The first involves chemical markers that would make different clusters see each other as threats. The second uses biological agents that affect their hive-mind connections. The third is direct military action to force territorial disputes. Dr. Rin clapped her hands together. I love the biological approach. I've already started developing agents that will disrupt their neural networks. Kelmoth, the coalition scientist, made a sound like choking. You're talking about biological warfare. That's against every civilized law of conflict. Your civilized laws of conflict, Captain Miso pointed out, are why you were losing to the devourers. But surely there are more peaceful solutions, Kelmoth protested. Negotiation, territory sharing, peaceful coexistence. The humans in the room looked at each other. After a moment, Dr. Rin spoke gently, as if explaining something to a child. Kelmoth, the devourers don't want territory. They want to consume everything that lives and turn it into more devourers. There is no peaceful coexistence with a species that sees you as food. But genocide is what they're committing against your people, Doyun interrupted. We're simply stopping them. Admiral Tay's hologram leaned forward. Dr. Rin, how long do you need to develop the biological agents? 3 days for the basic disruptor compounds, a week for the really interesting ones. Captain Miso, select a test site for field trials. Already identified, Admiral. The mining world in the Korvax system. It was overrun last month, and long-range scans show 3 different clusters fighting over the mineral resources. Hyuk felt uncomfortable with how quickly the humans were moving. Shouldn't we discuss this with the Coalition Council first? Admiral Tay looked at him through the hologram. Commander, the Coalition Council has been discussing the Devourer problem for 2 months. In that time, 6 star systems and over 100 billion lives have been lost. We prefer action to discussion. Dr. Rin began preparing her biological agents immediately. Hyuk watched her work with instruments he didn't recognize, creating compounds that would affect alien biology in ways he couldn't understand. She hummed while she worked, as if she was cooking dinner instead of developing weapons of mass destruction. Is this normal for human scientists? Kelmoth asked quietly. Dr. Rin specialized in hostile environment biology, Dr. Nari explained. On Earth, she studied organisms that live in conditions that would kill most life forms. Developing bioweapons is just another day's work for her. But she seems so happy about it. Humans tend to enjoy solving problems, Dr. Nari replied. The bigger the problem, the more they enjoy solving it. 3 days later, Captain Miso led a small fleet to the Korvax system to test Dr. Rin's biological agents. Hyuk watched the mission from the command center on the research station. Live feeds from reconnaissance drones showed the Devourer-occupied mining world. The planet looked like it was covered in tumors. The Devourers had built massive organic structures that pulsed with unnatural life. Between these structures, Different groups of devourers fought over territory and resources. See those conflict zones? Doyun pointed to areas where the fighting was heaviest. Those are the borders between different clusters. They're already competing. We just need to make the competition more intense. Captain Miso's ships released Dr. Rin's biological agents into the planet's atmosphere. The compounds were invisible, designed to be absorbed through the devourer's respiratory systems. According to Dr. Rin, they would enhance the creature's territorial instincts while suppressing their ability to communicate with other clusters. The results were visible within hours. The fighting between different devourer groups became much more violent. Clusters that had been sharing territory suddenly attacked each other with savage intensity. The organic structures began to crumble as their builders focused on destroying their neighbors instead of maintaining their constructions. "It's working," Captain Miso reported. "All three clusters are now in open warfare with each other." By the end of the second day, 2 of the 3 clusters had been completely destroyed. The third was so weakened that Captain Miso's Marines eliminated the survivors with ease. "The planet is clear," Captain Miso announced. "Total time from agent deployment to complete elimination, 47 hours. Kelmoth stared at the screen showing the now quiet mining world. 47 hours. We lost that planet in a single day, and the Devourers had been entrenched there for a month. "Human problem-solving methodology," Dr. Nari said. "Find the weakness, exploit the weakness, solve the problem." Admiral Tay's hologram appeared in the command center. "Excellent work, everyone. Dr. Rin, prepare larger quantities of the biological agents. Captain Miso, identify our next target. Analyst Do-hyun, expand your strategy to cover all known Devourer territories." "Admiral," Hayek said, "shouldn't we inform the Coalition Council about what we've accomplished?" "Of course, Commander. Tell them we've successfully tested our solution and we're ready to begin full-scale operations." "What should I tell them to expect?" Admiral Tay smiled, but it wasn't a reassuring expression. "Tell them to prepare for the complete elimination of the Devourer threat from Coalition space." "How long will that take?" Dr. Rin estimates 6 weeks for agent production. Captain Miso projects 4 weeks for deployment operations. Allow 2 weeks for cleanup and verification. Hayek did some quick math. 3 months to eliminate a threat that has been destroying star systems for decades? Approximately, Admiral Tay confirmed. "Is that a problem?" Veltar had been listening quietly to the entire conversation. Now he spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. "What have we done?" Dr. Rin looked up from her work, surprised by the question. "You asked for help, and we're helping. Why do you sound unhappy about it?" Veltar's skin showed swirling patterns of fear and confusion. "Because now I understand why your world is classified as a death world. It's not because of your environment. It's because of what your environment created." Engineer Kato looked up from his instruments. "Ambassador, we're not monsters. We're just very good at solving problems that threaten our friends." "That," Veltar replied quietly, "is exactly what makes you terrifying." Admiral Tay stood before the holographic battle map in the command center of Soul's Vengeance. Red zones marked Devourer-controlled territories across 8 star systems. Blue arrows showed the planned routes for human strike forces. It looked like a carefully planned extermination. "Operation Deep Clean begins in 6 hours, Admiral Tay announced to the assembled commanders. "General Wook will coordinate ground operations. Captain Hana will handle naval strikes. Dr. Rin's biological weapons are loaded and ready for deployment." Commander Hayek watched from the Coalition Observer Station as human military efficiency took over. Officers moved with purpose, speaking in short, clear sentences. Every person knew exactly what they were supposed to do. Dr. Nari stood beside him, translating the military terms for the Coalition representatives who had been allowed to observe the operation. Deep Clean is a standard human military strategy for eliminating hostile infestations, she explained. "Infestations?" asked Veltar. His blue skin showed patterns of nervousness. "That's how Earth Command classifies the Devourer problem," Dr. Nari replied. "Like insects that have invaded your house. You don't negotiate with them, you eliminate them completely." General Wook appeared on the communication screen from his command ship. He was a big man with scars on his face and hands that spoke of many battles. "Admiral, ground forces are ready for deployment. We have 12 assault divisions prepared for hostile environment operations. Hostile environment? Kelmoth asked quietly. Planets that are actively trying to kill you, Captain Hana explained as she joined the briefing. She was younger than the other commanders, but moved with the same deadly confidence. Poisonous atmospheres, extreme temperatures, radioactive surfaces, standard conditions for human military operations. You fight on planets that are trying to kill you? Veltar's voice cracked. All planets try to kill you, General Wook said simply. That's what makes them interesting. The first phase of Operation Deep Clean began with Dr. Rin's biological weapons. Human ships moved through Devourer territory like ghosts, releasing clouds of engineered organisms into planetary atmospheres. The weapons were invisible and silent, designed to work slowly at first. The initial compounds will take 72 hours to reach full effectiveness, Dr. Rin explained to the Coalition observers. They target the neural connections between different Devourer clusters, making them see each other as enemies instead of allies. How do they work? Asked Kelmoth. Dr. Rin's eyes lit up with enthusiasm. They're modified versions of Earth fungi that affect insect nervous systems. I adapted them to target the specific neurotransmitters that Devourers use for hive mind communication. You used Earth organisms as weapons? Oh, yes, Dr. Rin said cheerfully. Earth has millions of organisms that kill other organisms in fascinating ways. I just made them more focused. Hyuk watched the tactical displays as reports came in from across Devourer territory. The biological weapons were working exactly as planned. Devourer clusters that had been cooperating for months suddenly turned on each other with savage violence. Phase 1 complete, reported Admiral Tay. All target worlds show internal Devourer conflicts. Beginning Phase 2. Phase 2 was more direct. General Wook's ground forces landed on Devourer-occupied worlds, while the aliens were distracted by fighting each other. The human soldiers wore armor that made them look like metal demons and carried weapons that could destroy buildings. How are they surviving on those planets? Veltar asked, watching footage of human marines fighting through landscapes that looked like nightmares. The air was poisonous, the ground was covered in acid, and the temperature readings were extreme. Environmental suits, General Wook explained through the communication link. Standard equipment for Deathworld operations. These conditions are actually easier than some of the places we train. The human tactics were unlike anything the Coalition had ever seen. Instead of trying to hold territory or negotiate with enemies, the humans simply destroyed everything that posed a threat. They moved through Devourer installations like a force of nature, eliminating resistance with clinical efficiency. This is how humans fight? Asked the Mandorian representative, his fur standing up as he watched the battle footage. This is how humans solve problems, Dr. Nari corrected. When we decide something needs to be eliminated, we eliminate it completely, Captain. Hana's naval forces provided the third phase of the operation. Her ships moved through space like predators, hunting down Devourer vessels that tried to flee the chaos on the planets below. The space battles were short and decisive. Devourer ship construction is interesting, Captain Hana reported during a tactical briefing. They grow their vessels instead of building them, but organic ships have the same weakness as organic bodies. Which is? Asked Admiral Tay. They die when you kill them properly. The Coalition representatives watched in growing amazement as human forces systematically dismantled Devourer presence across multiple star systems. What had taken the aliens decades to build was being destroyed in days. How are they moving so quickly? Veltar asked. Our military advisors estimated that clearing even one system would take months. Human logistics, explained Engineer Kato, who was monitoring the operation from the research station. We've been fighting wars for thousands of years. We know how to supply armies across vast distances and coordinate attacks on multiple fronts simultaneously. Dr. Rin was particularly excited by the biological data being collected during the operation. The Devourers are adapting faster than I expected, she said, studying readings from the battlefield. Their biology is remarkably flexible. Is that a problem? Asked Hyuk. Oh no, Dr. Rin replied happily. It just means I get to develop more interesting weapons. I have 17 new biological agents ready for testing. The fourth week of Operation Deep Clean brought unexpected complications. Some devourer clusters had begun working together again, apparently developing resistance to Dr. Rin's biological weapons. "They're evolving countermeasures," reported General Wook from the surface of a contested world. "My forces are encountering devourers that seem immune to the neural disruptors." Admiral Tay studied the tactical reports with calm interest. "Dr. Rin, how quickly can you adapt your weapons?" "Already working on it," Dr. Rin replied. "I've identified the genetic changes they're making. Give me 6 hours and I'll have compounds that target their new biology." 6 hours? Kelmoth stared at her. "You can develop entirely new biological weapons in 6 hours?" "The framework is already established," Dr. Rin explained. "I just need to modify the targeting sequences. It's like changing the lock on a door instead of building a new door." But Admiral Tay had already moved to a different solution. "Captain Hana, begin Phase 4. "Phase 4? Veltar asked nervously. "Environmental modification," Captain Hana explained. "If the devourers are adapting to our biological weapons, we change the environment to something they can't adapt to quickly enough." The Coalition representatives watched in horror as human ships began bombarding devourer-occupied worlds with weapons they had never seen before. Instead of explosions, the weapons seemed to change the very nature of the planets themselves. "What are those weapons?" demanded Veltar. "Atmospheric processors," Admiral Tay replied calmly. "They alter the chemical composition of planetary atmospheres. The new atmospheric mix is breathable for most Coalition species, but toxic to devourer." "Biology, you're changing entire planets?" "Temporarily. The effects will wear off in a few decades." "A few decades?" "Don't worry," Engineer Cato added helpfully. "We're also deploying atmospheric scrubbers that will speed up the recovery process. Your planets will be habitable again in about 10 years. Veltar sat down heavily. "You're treating entire worlds like science experiments." "We're solving your problem," Dr. Rin pointed out. "The devourers can't survive in the new atmospheric conditions, but your people can return once we've confirmed the elimination is complete." By the 6th week, the operation was almost finished. Human forces had eliminated devourer presence from 7 of the 8 occupied systems. Only one system remained, and it appeared to be the devourer's primary stronghold. "Long-range scans indicate massive devourer concentrations in the Zerion system," reported Captain Hana. "Possibly their central command structure." "Excellent," said Admiral Tay. "General Wook, prepare for full assault operations. Dr. Rin, do we have biological weapons suitable for concentrated devourer populations?" "I have something special prepared," Dr. Rin replied with a smile that made several Coalition observers feel nervous. "A compound that targets their reproductive systems. Even if some survive the initial exposure, they won't be able to create new devourers." "You're going to sterilize their entire species?" Kelmoth's voice was barely a whisper. "Among other things," Dr. Rin confirmed. "I've also developed agents that will break down their organic technology and disrupt their food processing systems." Hayuk looked at the tactical display showing the final devourer stronghold. Soon, it would be gone, along with every other trace of the species that had terrorized the galaxy. "Admiral," he said, "what happens after we eliminate the last devourers?" "Admiral." Tay considered the question. "We go home, Commander. Our job will be finished. And the Coalition? We'll be safe from the devourer threat forever." Dr. Nari approached Hayo. The Zerion system looked like the inside of a monster. Massive organic structures floated in space between the planets, connected by streams of living matter that pulsed with alien energy. This was the heart of the Devourer Empire, and it was bigger than anyone had imagined. Admiral Tay studied the sensor readings from her command center aboard Soul's Vengeance. "Analysis confirms this is their central command structure. Dr. Rin, what are we looking at?" Dr. Rin's eyes were bright with scientific excitement as she examined the data. "It's incredible. They've built a distributed consciousness network using biological computers. The entire system is essentially one massive brain." "A brain?" "Commander," Hugh felt his stomach drop. "You mean the whole devourer species is controlled from here?" "Not controlled," Dr. Rin corrected. "The individual devourers have their own thoughts, but this system coordinates their large-scale behavior and stores their collective memory. It's like a library and command center combined." Colonel Junho joined the briefing via hologram from his assault ship. He was the leader of humanity's most elite military unit, and his presence meant the situation was about to become very serious. Admiral, my forces are ready for final assault operations. What are our objectives? Admiral Tay highlighted sections of the massive biological structure on the tactical display. Primary objective is the destruction of the central consciousness network. Secondary objectives include elimination of all Devourer manufacturing capabilities and command nodes. Rules of engagement? Total elimination, no survivors, no exceptions. Ambassador Veltar had been quietly listening to the military briefing. Now he spoke up, his voice shaking. Admiral, surely you don't mean to destroy their entire civilization. Perhaps there's a way to disable them without complete extinction. Though human officers looked at him with expressions he couldn't read. Finally, Admiral Tay responded. Ambassador, the Devourers have consumed 43 star systems and over 300 billion sentient beings. They convert captured populations into mindless drones and use their bodies to create more Devourers. There is no negotiating with such a species. But complete extinction is what they were planning for every other species in the galaxy. Colonel Junho interrupted. We're simply stopping them permanently. Dr. Rin was studying the biological readings more carefully. Admiral, I'm detecting something interesting in the consciousness network. The central structures aren't just command centers. They're also repositories of all Devourer knowledge and memory. Explain. If we destroy these structures, we won't just be killing the current Devourer population. We'll be erasing their entire cultural and scientific heritage, every piece of knowledge they've accumulated over millions of years. The coalition representatives looked hopeful. Surely the humans wouldn't destroy an entire species' accumulated knowledge. Excellent, said Admiral Tay. That ensures they can never recover or rebuild, even if some individuals survive in remote locations. Admiral, Veltar protested, that's not just genocide. That's the complete elimination of an entire civilization's achievements. Their achievements, Colonel Junho pointed out, include the consumption of 300 billion innocent beings. I don't think their cultural heritage is worth preserving. Dr. Rin began preparing her final biological weapons. These were different from anything she had created before. Instead of disrupting Devourer behavior or biology, they were designed to attack the consciousness network itself. I call it a consciousness virus, she explained to the horrified coalition observers. It will spread through their biological computer networks and systematically delete their stored information while simultaneously severing all connections between individual Devourers and the central system. What will happen to the individual Devourers? Asked Dr. Nari. They'll lose access to their collective intelligence and memory. Essentially, they'll become non-sapient organisms operating on basic instinct alone. Kelamoth made a sound like choking. You're going to destroy their minds? I'm going to turn them into harmless animals, Dr. Rin corrected cheerfully. Much more humane than simply killing them all. But they'll no longer be truly alive. Not as thinking beings. Dr. Rin paused in her work. Kelmoth, do you consider the beings they consumed and converted to be truly alive? The coalition scientist went quiet. Colonel Junho's assault began 3 hours later. His forces used ships designed for the most dangerous military operations humans had ever conceived. They moved through the organic structures like antibodies attacking an infection, destroying everything that could support Devourer consciousness or reproduction. The Devourers fought back with desperate intensity. They seemed to understand that this was their final battle. Massive biological weapons emerged from the living structures, organisms the size of ships that tried to crush or consume the human attackers. Interesting defensive adaptations, Colonel Junho reported as his forces engaged the massive bioweapons. They're creating specialized combat organisms in real time. Can you handle them? Asked Admiral Tay. They're big and scary looking, Colonel Junho replied. But they're still just organic tissue. Organic tissue burns. The human assault forces used weapons that turned the Devourer bioweapons into clouds of ash and vapor. The massive organic structures began to collapse as their support systems were systematically destroyed. Dr. Rin deployed her consciousness virus from specially equipped ships that could penetrate deep into the biological computer networks. The effects were visible almost immediately. The virus is spreading faster than anticipated, she reported with satisfaction. The Devourer network is trying to isolate infected sections, but the virus adapts faster than their defensive measures. On the tactical displays, the Coalition representatives watched as the massive consciousness network began to shut down. The pulsing streams of energy between structures flickered and died. The coordinated movements of Devourer forces became random and confused. "It's working," whispered Veltar. "The network is collapsing." "Individual Devourers are losing connection to the collective," Dr. Rin confirmed. "Brain scans show rapid degradation of higher cognitive functions. They're reverting to basic animal behavior." Colonel Junho's forces reached the Central Consciousness Core 18 hours after the assault began. The structure was the size of a small moon, a vast biological computer that had coordinated the actions of trillions of Devourers across the galaxy. "Preparing to deploy final charges," Colonel Junho reported. "This should eliminate the last traces of their collective intelligence." "Wait," Veltar called out suddenly. "Before you destroy it completely, shouldn't we study it, learn from it? The scientific knowledge contained in that structure could advance our understanding of consciousness and biology by centuries." Admiral Tay considered the request for a moment. "Dr. Rin, is there any scientific value in preserving samples of the consciousness network?" "Possibly," Dr. Rin replied. "But the risk of accidentally restoring their intelligence is too high. A species that views all other life as food cannot be allowed to retain the capability for organized thought." "But surely some precautions," Veltar began. "Ambassador," Admiral Tay interrupted. "Humans have a saying, when you kill a predator, you kill it completely. Half measures ensure that the problem returns stronger than before." Colonel Junho's final charges detonated in the heart of the consciousness network. The massive biological computer died in a cascade of system failures that spread throughout the entire structure. Within minutes, the most advanced collective intelligence in the galaxy had been reduced to inert organic matter. "Mission accomplished," Colonel Junho reported. "The consciousness network is completely destroyed. All connected Devourer forces show complete loss of higher cognitive function. Across the Xerian system, millions of Devourers stopped their coordinated activities and began wandering aimlessly. Some started grazing on the organic structures they had built. Others simply lay down and stopped moving. None showed any sign of the intelligence that had made them a galactic threat. "Final phase," Admiral Tay announced. "Captain Hana, begin cleanup operations. I want every trace of Devourer technology and infrastructure eliminated." Captain Hana's ships methodically destroyed the massive organic structures throughout the pole system. The weapons they used were designed to break down biological matter at the molecular level, ensuring that nothing could be salvaged or rebuilt. "Is this really necessary?" asked Kelmoth, watching the destruction. "The Devourers are no longer a threat. The infrastructure could potentially be used to rebuild their civilization," Dr. Rin explained. "Even without their consciousness network, another species might try to reverse engineer their technology. So you're eliminating all evidence that they ever existed?" "We're being thorough," Admiral Tay confirmed. When the cleanup was finished, the Xerian system looked empty. Where once there had been a vast biological empire spanning multiple planets, now there were only drifting clouds of organic debris that would decompose within a few years. "Operation Deep Clean is complete," Admiral Tay announced. "The Devourer threat has been permanently eliminated." Engineer Kato was monitoring the aftermath from his station. "Long-range sensors confirm that Devourer forces throughout the galaxy have lost coordination. Individual units are exhibiting non-sapient behavior patterns." "How many?" 6 months after the elimination of the Devourer threat, Kepler Station hosted the largest diplomatic gathering in Coalition history. Representatives from dozens of species had come to celebrate their salvation and establish new relationships with their human rescuers. The celebration felt more like a funeral. Commander Hugh stood in the main assembly hall, watching alien diplomats speak in hushed voices, while carefully avoiding the area where the human delegation sat. The humans had been given the seats of honor, but no one wanted to sit near them. Dr. Nari approached him with 2 cups of the synthetic coffee that the station's food processors made. "How are you feeling about your promotion?" she asked. Hayuk had been named the permanent human ambassador to the Coalition, a position that came with more responsibility than he wanted. "Terrified," he admitted. Everyone looks at me like I might suddenly decide they're a threat that needs to be eliminated. Can you blame them? Ambassador Veltar stepped up to the speaking platform to address the assembly. His blue skin showed patterns that Hyuk had learned meant deep sadness mixed with gratitude. It was a disturbing combination. Friends, Veltar began, we gather today to celebrate our freedom from the Devourer threat. 3 months ago, this seemed impossible. The Devourers had consumed 6 star systems and were expanding toward our core worlds. Many of us believed that our civilization would not survive. A murmur of agreement came from the assembled representatives. Several species had been making preparations for evacuation or surrender when the human fleets arrived. We owe our survival to our human allies, Veltar continued. Their military forces accomplished in 3 months what our combined fleets could not achieve in decades. For this, we are eternally grateful. Polite applause echoed through the hall, but Hyuk noticed that most representatives kept their eyes down. Gratitude and fear were difficult emotions to express simultaneously. However, Veltar's voice grew more serious. Our salvation has come with lessons that we must consider carefully as we move forward into a new era of galactic relations. Captain Miso sat at the human delegation table, looking relaxed and confident. She had stayed behind to establish permanent human monitoring stations throughout former Devourer territory. Her presence made many coalition members nervous, but Admiral Tay had insisted that someone remain to ensure the threat stayed eliminated. We have learned, Veltar continued, that there are species in this galaxy with capabilities far beyond our own understanding. We have learned that our concepts of warfare and conflict resolution are not universal, and we have learned that sometimes survival requires accepting help from those who fight by rules we cannot comprehend. Dr. Rin had also remained in coalition space, officially to study the biological aftermath of the Devourer elimination. Unofficially, everyone understood that she was there to make sure no one tried to rebuild Devourer technology. She seemed genuinely excited by the research opportunities, which made her more frightening than the soldiers. The Devourer threat is gone, Veltar announced, but the galaxy has changed. We must establish new protocols for interaction with species whose capabilities exceed our own. We must develop new understanding of what it means to share space with apex predators. Engineer Kato looked up from the technical manual he was reading. He had been upgrading coalition defense systems with human technology, just in case something else shows up. The upgrades made coalition ships much more powerful, but also required human technical support to maintain. After the formal ceremony, Hyuk found himself in a smaller meeting room with the coalition's senior leadership. The conversation he had been dreading was about to begin. Ambassador Hyuk, began the Mandorian representative, her gray fur standing on end with nervousness. We must discuss the future relationship between humanity and the coalition. What specifically concerns you? Hyuk asked, though he already knew. Everything, the Zephyrian representative sang in its high musical voice. Your species eliminated the Devourers with a casualness that disturbs us. You treated the destruction of an entire civilization as a routine military exercise. The Devourers were a threat to every living being in the galaxy, Hyuk replied. We eliminated the threat. Isn't that what you wanted? Yes, Veltar said quietly. But now we understand what elimination means to humans. The Thessarian activated a holographic display showing statistics from the human operation. Your forces destroyed not just the Devourer military, but their entire civilization. Their technology, their knowledge, their culture, even their capacity for intelligent thought. You didn't just defeat them, you erased them from existence. Was there an alternative? Hyuk asked. We don't know, admitted the Mandorian. But we never had the chance to explore other options. Your species moved from first contact to total extermination in 3 months. Dr. Nari entered the meeting room, carrying a data pad with her latest research findings. I hope I'm not interrupting. Anything important? Dr. Nari, Veltar said, perhaps you can help us understand something. How does human civilization view the complete elimination of another sapient species? Dr. Nari sat down and considered the question carefully. It depends on the circumstances. If a species threatens human survival or the survival of our allies, we eliminate the threat. The method depends on how complete the elimination needs to be. And the Devourers required complete elimination? Obviously, Dr. Nari replied. They were expanding exponentially and converting captured populations into more devourers. Partial solutions would have just delayed the problem. But surely there were other options. Containment, negotiation, peaceful coexistence, with a species that sees all other life as food? Dr. Nari looked genuinely confused. How do you negotiate with something that wants to eat you? The alien representatives looked at each other. Finally, the Zephyrian spoke. This is what concerns us. To humans, the complete destruction of the Devourers was the obvious solution. You didn't even consider alternatives. What alternatives? Captain Miso had joined the meeting without being invited, as humans tended to do. The Devourers had consumed 300 billion sentient beings. They were expanding toward coalition core worlds. They had demonstrated that they couldn't be reasoned with or contained. What solution would you have preferred? Something less final, Veltar said weakly. Less final means less effective, Captain Miso replied. Humans don't do half measures when dealing with existential threats. And that, the Mandorian said, is exactly what terrifies us. Engineer Kato looked up from his technical work. Are you saying you're afraid of us now? Yes, Veltar admitted. We're grateful for your help, but we're also terrified of what your help revealed about human capabilities. You're afraid we might decide you're a threat? Captain Miso asked. The thought has occurred to us. The room went very quiet. Hyuk realized that this was the conversation that would define humanity's relationship with the rest of the galaxy for generations to come. Let me be clear about something, Captain Miso said finally. Humans don't pick fights with species that aren't threatening us or our allies. The Devourers were eliminated because they were consuming innocent civilizations. You're not doing that. But if we were, the Zephyrian asked, then you would stop, Captain Miso replied simply. One way or another. Dr. Nari tried to be more diplomatic. What Captain Miso means is that humans are protective of our friends. As long as the coalition remains peaceful and doesn't threaten other species, you have nothing to worry about from us. And if another species like the Devourers appears, asked Veltar, we'll eliminate them too, Captain Miso confirmed. That's what we do. Over the following weeks, the coalition worked to establish what they called the Terran Protocols, formal agreements that recognized humanity as the galaxy's dominant military power while attempting to channel that power toward mutual benefit. The protocols included provisions for human intervention in case of future existential threats, shared technology development under human supervision, and regular diplomatic meetings to prevent misunderstandings that might escalate to conflict. Most importantly, the protocols established the principle that humanity would not interfere in coalition internal affairs as long as those affairs didn't threaten other species or galactic stability. Hyuk signed the protocols on behalf of Earth, knowing that he was essentially formalizing humanity's position as the galaxy's apex predator. Captain, Miso prepared to return to Earth along with most of the human military forces. Before leaving, she met with Hyuk in his quarters. Any advice for dealing with our new allies? He asked. Don't let them forget what happened to the Devourers, she replied. Grateful allies are useful. Terrified allies are more reliable. That seems cold. It's practical. The coalition will never threaten us or our interests because they've seen what we do to threats. That makes this arrangement stable. And if they decide the fear is worse than the risk? Captain Miso smiled the same predatory smile that Admiral Tay had shown months earlier. Hyuk, they've seen what we do to species that actually threaten us. Do you really think they want to find out what we do to former allies who become enemies? After the human military forces departed, Hyuk found himself alone in his quarters, reading the classified coalition file that Veltar had given him. The document was titled Species Assess Me.